Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, but I hope you know that. If you don't know that, you now know that. And we've got a great guest for you today. One of the things that we all have in life, and some of us get to experience more of it than others, is pain. As a matter of fact, I got to tell you, I had a cast on my arm as of yesterday. And when they took the cast off, and the doctor said, because I broke my wrist, and they put a thing in there and stuff to stabilize it. And he said, okay, this is what I want you to do. I want you to bend your wrist back and bend it forward until there's pain. Not a lot of pain, but just a little pain, because pain can be therapeutic. And I said, but I don't like pain. I don't want to have any pain. And the gal that we have with us today, because I've had both my hips replaced. I've had back surgery. I've had stomach surgery. I've had elbow. Anyway, so I've had my share of pain. But you are what we would call, and Jen Uschold is who this is. Did I say that right?
You sure did. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That makes me so happy. And she's the painless coach, because she can help you in myriad of ways, both body, mind, brain, and soul, to figure out how you can manage that and to move forward through it so that you can have a painless life for more of life, because pain tends to restrict our ability to do stuff. It surely doesn't make it any fun to go do stuff when you're in pain. But in any event, Jen, how are you? It's great to have you here.
I am good. I am very excited to be here. I like to see the needle, and I like to see Mount St. Helens back there, so it's great.
Say hello to your sister. She's in West Seattle.
Hi, Suzanne. I don't know if she joined, but she knows about it.
Well, and she can, and by the way, anybody who wants to can go on YouTube right now to the YouTube channel, my Positive Talk Radio, and click on the live button, and voila, and Jen will be right there. And so tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your work, how you got into this. I assume that at one point in time there was pain involved in your life.
You know, it's interesting. My personal pain story is not what drove me to being passionate about pain and pain science. Is I have two sisters who are actually physical therapists. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I thought, well, being a PT sounds pretty okay. And then I didn't plan to be a PT, but I fell in love with it. And I quickly realized there are people that I don't know how to help. And we used to have different names for chronic pain, but we've learned so much in recent decades, and we now know that we have to treat chronic pain very differently from the acute pain from when you broke your wrist, and even differently based on emotions. Because you mentioned earlier, our pain experiences are based on our emotions, our environment, our spirituality, and yes, what's going on with our body. So I did a deep dive around 2014. I did a therapeutic pain specialist program. That wasn't quite enough. So then I completed a fellowship in pain science. And now I'm very passionate about merging it with mental fitness or pain science, because mental fitness or positive psychology, because we can use these things to really help people show up how they want and really take ownership of their body and their experiences. And I like to say, do you want to handle your pain or have your pain handle you?
We normally have you ever gone to the doctor and they have this chart on the wall that says, okay, what pain level are you at? And it's like either a 1 through 10 thing. And you say, I'm at 5 or I'm at 7 or whatever it is. And that's how they treat you. But it's not a matter of they don't look at it like, well, can you breathe a little bit and maybe control it a little bit and use some techniques and teach you any of that, because quite frankly, they don't got time. They got 15 minutes to spend with you, and so that's it. But it's vital because there are people who spend their whole life feeling in pain. They don't know how to deal with it. They go to the doctor, and the doctor looks at them and says, "Hmm, yep, you're in pain. Don't know why, but you're in pain. Don't know how to fix it, but you're in pain." And that's why someone like you, who takes a full body, mind, spirit approach, can be helpful to somebody, because it's a chronic pain is an ongoing thing, fibromyalgia and so many other different maladies that can bother us for so much. So so you started out as a physical therapist?
I still am a physical therapist, and my specialty is through pain science and positive intelligence, and I'm integrating that with coaching as well. So I still do PT.
Yes. Now, positive intelligence, that's another one. So put that on your list. Another one that I want to talk about, because that is so important to how we live our life. Because, and I know that you know this, that we get to choose in a lot of cases how we're going to live our life, and sometimes we allow pain to get involved and to overwhelm us. Has that been your experience with some of us?
Shockingly, we always get to choose whether we are experiencing pain or we're experiencing a negative emotion. They really are information, and we get to decide what to do with that information. And the example I like to give when it's pain is you put your hand on a hot stove, you receive that information, great, take your hand off. That's what we really want you to do. You put your hand on a warm countertop and you think it's a hot stove, well, that's different information. Oh, you know what? We're safe. This stove is this countertop is just warm because the sun was shining on it. And the same is true if we get a negative emotion. Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it anxiety? We can choose to spin in it, or we can choose to recognize it's there and use mental fitness strategies or positive intelligence to shift out of it. So we always get the choice, and it's challenging to recognize that. And one of my children once, I reminded him of that when he was in the spin. He goes, "You know, Mom, sometimes it's really hard to know that I can make that choice." And it is, because sometimes people want to sit in the yuck rather than finding their way out.
How do you handle somebody who says, "I have the pain and that's just the way it is"? They don't believe that they can change. And but that's how you live a better life, is by being willing to choose a different path. But how do you convince people that 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 works?
It's not my job to convince them. I take it more as my job to help them get curious. And many people attach the idea that, oh, I feel pain in my knee, my hip, my shoulder. There was something wrong in my knee, my hip, my shoulder. So, one of the really important things, we need to break apart that pain and tissue damage are the same thing. And so, I would just explain to them, hey, if you do public speaking, do you ever get butterflies in your stomach or a little bit nauseous before you speak? And many people do. Well, there's nothing wrong medically with their stomach. It is the response of that stress and anxiety. And so that is an example of the very real pain in their stomach, but their body is entirely fine. We also have the opposite. A lot of times people, they'll get in the shower and they'll be like, wait a minute, where did that scratch come from? Or where did that big bruise come from? The bruise is tissue damage, and their brain wasn't concerned about it, and so didn't create the pain experience. So there's tissue damage and no pain. And we often have pain and no tissue damage. And so helping people to break those apart is a really important step in this process.
How, and when you are helping them break that apart, do they get the sense that what they're doing is unique and different, and this can actually work for them? Or do you have to provide them with, concrete results that they're getting based upon the work that you do with them over time?
All right, this is a cool question. I love this. There is so much research around pain science. And one of our very first most important aspects is education. And we actually have, I think it's 12 meta analysis showing that when people learn about pain, they have less pain. And this is measurable on those fancy brain scans, fMRIs. And so if I have someone who is willing to have a conversation about pain, because most people I ask them, what is pain? And they can describe what pain feels like. They can describe how it interferes with their life, but they don't know what pain is. And when they understand how it works, this empowers them to know what to do about it.
And so knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power if you apply it and integrate it in your life.
And because knowledge without activation and without power is pretty much useless, isn't it?
Exactly. And in the mental fitness world or positive intelligence, we talk about that the education or the awareness, there's research to support this, is about 20% of the story. But the 80% comes from the repetition of whatever it is that they're doing. Nobody becomes a chemical engineer by reading a book. They read the book and then they have to practice, they have to integrate it, they have to apply over and over again, and then they become an expert. It's no different with pain.
Unless you're like me, in which case I couldn't be a chemical engineer or whatever you just said to save my life anyway. And I don't have the desire to do that. But is there I just hit a key point, didn't I? Which is, in order to change positively, you have to have the desire to change positively and to know that and to believe it. And that's part of the brain science is if you believe it, it will come. Is that right?
Henry Ford tells us whether you believe you can do a thing or not, you are right. And I integrate this a lot in my work. We have in our brain called mirror neurons. So about 25% of your 80 billion neurons are mirror neurons. So this means they respond to what you think, what you say, what you feel, what you do. And so I just had someone today, she's anticipating a potential problem tomorrow morning, and we started to use imagery and visualization because when she can refigure the imagery in her mind, she's using the same parts of her brain as when she's actually in it. So she's getting the repetition now so that when the situation presents itself for tomorrow, she's already ahead of the game and her brain and nervous system are like, oh, we know what to do, no sweat.
So I got to ask you because when I was younger and I would watch like a documentary, and it would be like, this guy is a surgeon and he operates without any anesthetic. And the people say that they don't experience pain. That can't be true. How could that possibly be true? That doesn't make any sense. Science says that can't make sense. Well, they were wrong, weren't they?
Yeah, that is called hypnotherapy and clinical hypnosis. I actually know a psychologist. It's amazing. And his entire brand is dealing with helping people with gut issues through informed psychology and using some of this hypnosis. So our brain is very powerful. We can think pain. We can also think our way out of pain. Now, this is not negating that we need medical things. Sometimes we need casts, such as yourself, and sometimes we need surgery. However, most of us are not harnessing the knowledge and the power we have within ourselves to make such a difference in our pain. And when people understand it and choose to implement the strategies, because we have 22 plus science-based strategies to help people ease their pain. And exercise and education are the two most important.
Now, when we come back from this break, I want to talk to you about fibromyalgia, which is a pain that even doctors today. Well, you tell me. The last I heard that in a lot of cases, they're like, I don't know what's going on with you, and I don't know why you're having pain. Maybe it's all in your head, kind of thing. And I want to touch bases with that because there are a lot of people that you can help that are going through pain, and the doctor says, I don't know. Here, by the way, take this pill. and take this muscle relaxant, do this, and then stuff like that. Well, we need to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Jen Uschold, and she is the painless coach because there's no pain to work with her. How about that? Anyway, uh, I'm sorry, I just had to say that. But
It's all good.
and by the way, if you are a real estate agent or a real estate agent wannabe, or think you want to be a real estate agent, but you don't have any listings and you don't have any prospects, you need to listen to this guy. I think he can help you.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And Rochelle will be here maybe, and I'm hopeful that she will be, because this conversation that we're having would be very beneficial for her. But she's off buying a new car, and it's one of those things, Anyway, but Jen Upshold is with us, and she's the painless coach. And I wanted to ask you about fibromyalgia, because the doctors who are not really gifted at understanding it, they tend to say it's all in your head. And that is not really an appropriate thing or appropriate way to say that, is it?
100%. That is an inappropriate way to say that. And fibromyalgia and many of these other chronic pain conditions, they really come down to a sensitivity of the nervous system. And what I want all of your listeners to know is that all pain is real. We have never, ever scanned fake pain. They're super smart pain scientists. They've never scanned fake pain. Now, it's also important to note that pain is based on a real or a perceived threat. We talked about hand on a hot stove versus hand on a warm countertop. Your brain does not know the difference between real or perceived. And when it receives information from your brain and your body, and not your brain, from your body and your environment, it has to make a decision very quickly on how to best protect you. Fun fact for you, your brain processes 11 million, I said that right, pieces of information every second to protect you. So sometimes it might do its job too well. And this is often the case with people with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and other chronic types of conditions. And a lot of times I like to describe it as a house alarm. So would you agree that if I chucked a brick through your front window, you would want your house alarm to go off?
Heck yeah.
Right. But what if we mess with the sensitivity of the alarm and just a leaf hit your window and your house alarm went off? Is your house okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, your house is okay. It's the sensitivity of the alarm that we need to address. And so I ask my clients, is it possible that your house, your body is okay? And we need to focus on the sensitivity of your alarm so it's responding to bricks rather than leaves. And your nervous system is doing its job, it's just doing it too well.
And so we tend to believe then after you've experienced chronic pain for a period of time, it becomes part of you. And it becomes part of your presentation, if you will. I can't do that because I have chronic pain and stuff. But there doesn't seem to be, because like the doctors will say again, they'll say, I don't know, and I don't have time to talk to you, and I don't have time to go through all of that. But you have a bit. We individually ourselves have the ability, with coaching and with teaching and with understanding, to monitor and to lessen our own pain as we experience it.
Absolutely. It takes knowledge and curiosity and then choosing which of the tools you want to integrate for yourselves. And I would like to do a shout out. There are many, many doctors who are becoming more in tune with the pain science approach. And to your earlier point, they are limited in their time. I do want to believe that they are doing the best that they can. However, when we question what a client is telling us, and we tell them there's nothing wrong with you, it's all in your head, we're doing a disservice, and we can actually make their nervous system more sensitive. And so finding the right clinician who's a good fit for you is going to be really critical. Because another fun fact for you, when you meet a new clinician, I think it's 0.01 seconds before you decide if you trust that clinician or not. And your trust is actually often more important than their skill.
Your trust is more important than their skill. That's a pretty big statement right there. Do they teach that in medical school? that you get
I don't know.
you get the
In my
first.
world, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
In my world, we call it therapeutic alliance. We have to connect. And before I learned anything about pain science, my first 5 years of school or out as a PT, I was like, I think people only got better because I cared about them and I really connected with them and listened because, I mean, my skills as a new grad, whatever. So I believe that even before I knew it was a science backed.
Well, and the reason that I say that is that if they understood, because I've been through this. I went to a back doctor one time, and he had the personality of I don't know, some inanimate object, and was just not a very nice person. And I even said when I left, and I was going to make another appointment, and I said to the receptionist, I said, "He's not very nice, is he?" And she said, "Oh no, but you get used to it." And but he's a good doctor and stuff. He could have been a great doctor if he actually was personable to his people and that kind of stuff. And but that is part of the mental aspect of all of us as humans, isn't it? Is that we make judgments about other people and who we are, and I like this person and I don't like this person, but 0.1 second, really?
It's either I think it's 0.01. I learned it. We had an entire week in the fellowship on just trust and the science of trust. And the guy who taught it got his PhD in trust. Isn't that amazing?
You can get a PhD in trust. That would be really cool.
He did.
That's that's amazing. Well, and the thing is, I like to say on the show that if you believe in who you are and you trust in who you are, then that's who you will be. And that's who you will become if you trust in who you are, and that you get rid of all the stories and all the things from your past that have been told to you that are not true, because it's only you who can determine your worth and who you really are and how it works. Does pain kind of work that way too?
To a point, we use the word biopsychosocial. So pain is almost all of the ologies, if not all of them. So we have to consider the biology, we have to consider the psychology, we have to consider the sociology, and so many more. But we talk about broadly buckets. And so when you broke your wrist, you were much more in the biology bucket because that's when it happened. And we know that there was a fracture. There's still a piece of psychology and sociology. We don't know the details and we don't need to share them, but what was going on when you broke your wrist, or what was the environment? And so those things play a bigger role. Now, when somebody's had pain for 3 years or 15 years, the biology bucket is much smaller, and we have to get more curious about the influence of the psychology and the sociology. They still feel pain. The pain is real, but when we can make an informed decision about which bucket is the dominant bucket, this helps guide our treatment program and our treatment ideas, because everyone is unique and human in their pain experience.
I got to ask you this, because there are people that I know that they kind of they have a victimhood about it, and they kind of revel in the pain and they think about it in terms of, oh, I can't do that because I'm in such pain, or you need to be nice to me because I'm always in such pain and stuff. Is that a self-fulfilling prophecy sometimes?
You've just taken a leap into positive intelligence. So, positive intelligence in a sentence is, I describe it as harnessing your brain to be your best friend rather than your worst enemy. And broadly, negative emotions are in the left side of your brain, those structures, and positive emotions are on the right side. And one of these 10 saboteurs on the left side is the victim. And they all show up differently as individuals, and they all show up differently in pain. So when the victim is showing up in pain, there is this woe is me. I need attention because this is going on with me. But again, we talked before, they always get the choice to choose to live in that victim place, but they don't know any different. They don't have the awareness that this is happening to them. So we certainly don't want to be launching blame on them. But when we get curious, like, well, I understand you can't go for a walk with me because of your pain. Are you interested in changing that? Are you curious about learning how you can shift to something different? And if the answer is yes, let's go. And if the answer is no, then we respect that and meet them where they are. Because I cannot want someone to get better more than they want to get better themselves.
It's interesting that you say that. And in my youth, many, many years ago, I was an athlete. And as an athlete, I played football and I played basketball and baseball and wrestled and all that kind of stuff. But and occasionally, there are bumps and bruises that you get. But when you are getting and you have a bumps and bruise, or something's going on with you, but and I'll take football as an example. You may feel a, something about something that's going on with you, a bruise or somebody hits you really hard or whatever, and then the next play is ready to begin. The adrenaline starts pumping, and the pain just seems to go away for that moment, and it can come back after the play is over. But while that is on happening, the pain disappears. Is that a physical thing or a mental thing, or do I need to be on medication?
The answer is yes, it is both. So your brain, my father loved to say that, your brain is the most powerful pain medicine cabinet in the entire world. People with chronic pain, for reasons that might be a little more detailed than we want to get into, their pain medicine cabinet dries up. And so part of the work of pain science is to rebuild their pain medicine cabinet. Now, if you remember, your brain creates pain based on the level of real or perceived threat. So your sports is a great example, and we're going to make it even more simple for everyone to understand. Let's say you sprain your ankle walking on your driveway. We would probably expect it to hurt, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's say you are crossing a super busy highway. You don't bother to wait for the cross light, and you sprain your ankle in the exact same manner, but out of the corner of your eye, there is a bus hurling at you. Do you think you will feel pain in your ankle?
Oh no, heck no. As a matter of fact, I'd probably be the one driving a bus because I drove a bus in Seattle for 12 years. But
Don't
I,
run over anybody.
but I do know that there were people that were got really, really quick when they thought that they were in. And so yeah, so if somebody hurts like sprains an ankle or something, the overriding flight or fright overrides that so that you can get to where it's a safety. And then I've always wondered that. Why is it that you'll have something that'll go on like that, and then you stop, and then it starts to hurt?
Love this question. So we're going back to 11 million pieces of information per second the brain is processing to protect you. And so in that moment, your brain's like, we have a sprained ankle. There's a bus coming at us, sprained ankle. Which is more important for our survival? Oh my gosh, get out of the way of the bus. If Kevin feels pain in his ankle, then he's going to get splatted by the bus. And then you get to the other side, and your brain's like, okay, cool. we survived that. You got out of the way of the bus. Oh, and by the way, you sprained your ankle. So can you please take care of that? So the brain is constantly evaluating what to do to keep us safe.
Do we know everything? Well, I need to ask this question when we come back. We need to take our halftime break, but I got to ask you: do we know how intricate and how complex the human brain? I think we're still trying to study it in a lot of ways, but I'm going to ask Jen when we come back from that question. By the way, go to her website, which is jenuschold.com, and you spell her last name USCHOLD.com, and you can get more information about her, the work that she does. And we will be right back after this. It's just a minute and 10 seconds. Just calm down and don't feel any pain for that time. And that's a great experiment. Okay, if you're in the audience and you're experiencing pain right now, I want you to do this. I want you to pretend that this commercial is going to solve your pain problem, and you're not going to feel any pain at all during the time that this commercial is running. And then when it's over, you can reestablish your pain stuff. But I'll bet you that you're going to feel better for the next a minute and 10. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And Jen Uschold is here with us today. She's the painless coach, because it's painless to work with her. No, I know I said that earlier, and that's not, But so I got to ask everybody, did you do that for a minute 10? And did you notice that there was a pain reduction in whatever pain you were feeling at the time? And now you're swearing at me because it's back. I get it. But does that ever, Jen, does that ever really work?
We can think pain, and we can also think our way out of pain. The fear of pain is often worse than the pain itself. I had a client once, she could not even watch me do an exercise because of the fear of pain in her own body and nervous system. So yes, and this goes back to the mirror neurons. We can use our thoughts to advance us forward, or we can use them to kind of get stuck in the roundabout of pain. So absolutely, thoughts are actual nerve impulses.
And those are electrical impulses, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
And so that means, you know what that means? You know what that means? That we are energetic beings, and that we have electricity that is flowing through us all the time, as is the universe and everything around us. And if you understand that concept, then you're able to control it a little bit. And you talked about hypnosis earlier. Isn't it amazing how sometimes hypnosis can do wonderful things, because it changes people's perception of themselves a little bit, I think, maybe.
I'm no expert in hypnosis, but I know this doctor who I worked with, he sent me a YouTube video of somebody he had worked with, and she just talked herself through, I think it was an appendectomy. She had no anesthesia at all, and she talked to people and let it be recorded because she wanted to demonstrate how you can use hypnosis and have no pain during surgery.
There are a lot of things that my ex-wife did and didn't do, and but one of the things that I was just amazed at is that we had two children together, and she did not have any anesthetic for either delivery. And as a matter of fact, the second child, the nurse came in and because of how my wife was displaying no discomfort, because she decided that she was going to do this and it was going to be fine and she didn't have to worry about it. And she wasn't displaying any discomfort. And if for those of you who don't know what dilated means, I won't go into the details, but um, the nurse said, well, you're probably dilated at 2 or 3, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. And so she checked her, and her eyes got real big because she said, excuse me, I'll be right back. And we heard her say, good God, she's a 9. Call the doctor. He's got to get here quick.
That's awesome.
Because she was not recognizing that, and that the pain was there, and she wasn't dreading it, and she wasn't saying, oh, I'm going to have an epidural, and then I'm going to want this, and she was determined that she was going to make it work, and she could. Go ahead.
So you said she wasn't recognizing that the pain was there.
Correct.
Just as the client earlier today. Can you have pain and not feel it?
Yes.
Respectfully?
Science? Oh, no, wait a minute.
No.
You can't. No. Okay, I'm confused. Help me here.
Okay. All pain is both physical and emotional. So it is a physical experience. And so if you do not feel the physical or the emotional experience of pain, then you don't have pain. Like this woman came in today. She's like, I've been great since I saw you last. I think I'm just ignoring it. And I said, if you're ignoring it, that means you're not feeling it. She said, yep. And then I said, okay, can you have pain and not feel it? And she sat there and paused. And I love it because, the wheels are turning. And in a few minutes, she's like, okay, so I haven't had pain this week. Yet she was still stuck in this place of, I have a problem. I have pain. I said, well, what's it like to embrace the fact that you're doing better? Like, why is it that you're ignoring the pain versus there's no longer a threat? My nervous system is doing well.
And hence, ergo, there's no pain.
Pain is physical and emotional. You cannot have pain and not feel it.
So the brain is a complex 11. Did you say 11 million things a second? How could they even count that high?
I don't know. I wonder that exact same thing. And once I extrapolated the number of zeros, like how many pieces of information in an hour, it's too many zeros for me to calculate. My father would be horrified. He was a mathematician.
Well, but see, that's the thing. So the brain, we still don't know. Well, you tell me. I'm not the expert. Do we know everything about the brain yet?
Oh my gosh, no.
We know?
Not even close. I think the last I heard, and that was a few years ago, is that we understand about 10% of the brain.
So what's the well, I suppose it's doing things at 11 million a second, which is why we don't recognize and understand it. But what the rest of, if we understand 10% and we're getting all this information about pain and right side and left side and front lobe and back lobe and all this stuff, and we still don't have it down yet, it is a marvelous creation, isn't it?
Imagine our capacity as we keep learning more and more and more about this great brain and body and nervous system.
So that leads me to another thing. If we only understand 10% of it, and we still have got intuition, and we've got things like that come to us, and psychic mediums, or a musician, or someone like you that does your work, and you use, whether you want to admit it or not, you use a lot of intuition in your work, and working with clients and asking the right questions and developing the right thought patterns. And so if we only understand 10%, what is the capability? Just fantasize for a moment. What can we eventually be using? If we used 100% of our brain, what could we accomplish?
I don't know. I'm going to start the answer and see where it goes from this place of right and left sided. So most of us are left side dominant, these saboteurs. And if we can tap into the right side, we refer to them as our sage powers, the ability to be empathic with ourselves, with others, with situations, the ability to explore and get really curious, the ability to innovate in like safe brainstorming, the ability to navigate and reflect. In 20 years, does it really matter that my coffee was warm from the coffee shop this morning? And then hardcore laser focused action. If we can all be functioning in the right side of our brain a higher percentage of the time, I'm making this up, I believe we become more connected with ourselves and with each other. And I believe that ripple is kindness, connection, easing of all of these tensions and battles. It's a he said, she said. If we come together with curiosity over criticism, it starts by shifting to the right side of our brain.
And that can change everything, can't it?
I think so.
Got a question for you. I have a friend, and this friend was doing something very special, and then she was waylaid by somebody else's behavior.
Mm.
And that behavior upset that person. And my advice to them was the gospel according to Paul McCartney, let it be. And that's in the past. Let it go. It doesn't matter. Is that reasonable advice to give to somebody who's feeling that difficulty and that stress and that ick and that you know what I mean?
I guess my first thought would be, did that person want advice or did they just want some support? That would be question number one. And this is where we get more into the mental fitness again, is getting curious about what's going on, right? She's in this place. She can only control herself, her thoughts, and her behaviors. We cannot control other people. And we really want to believe we can. And we like to describe it as a surfer. A surfer can only control themselves. They cannot control the water. They cannot control the waves. They cannot control the sun. And so when we can take ownership of what we can control, this actually puts us in a better place to connect with others. And say said person is irate or angry, it comes back to that choice again. We get to choose. Are we going to let that person drag us a negative self-fulfilling prophecy or a negative contagion toward their side? Or are we going to stay or even get more sage ourselves with the cool potential unintended consequence of them shifting a little bit away from that deep, dark saboteur place as well?
No, I love that. And while you were saying that, I was thinking about the surfer and the wave and the sun and the wind, and they can't control any of that other than their own body and movement. And they can't control the shark that is lurking upon them either. Which led me to, did you ever see? I'm sure you have, but probably not when I saw it. I saw Jaws in the drive-in movie theater. Okay, here's a drive-in movie theater used to be a place where you could actually drive your car into the place, and you had this little speaker that you put on your window, and then you could watch the movie from your car. That was a drive-in movie. They don't really have those anymore, but so I saw Jaws in that, and that there. Have you ever heard the expression a popcorn throwing moment?
Yeah.
You could see popcorn being thrown in many cars when a particular scene came up, and you could hear the sound of people screaming. It was muffled because they were in their own car. But I bring that story up to tell you that for years, every time I went to the beach and I thought about, even though it was like, lake, there aren't any great whites. intellectually, I know that there are no great whites in Lake Sammamish in the state of Washington. However, as I'm swimming and I hear this song, dun, 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 and so now I'm scared of this thing that realistically I know that there's no shark there. There can't be. I'm perfectly safe, but my brain, because of fight or flight, is that what that is telling me run out of the water now.
That's not quite fight. Fight or flight might be that response of running out of the water. But how did you get there is because your brain is the biggest card catalog ever, bigger than Amazon, has categorized every single solitary thing you've ever experienced. And when it thinks we need to bring it back into the present moment, if it has the desire to protect you, it will. So an example I like is a quarter. Like your vision is only that of a quarter, but your brain is so cool, it fills in the rest so we get this great big picture. So possibly in the water there, water, music, your brain's like, holy crap, last time there was water and music, somebody got chomped by a shark. And then off you go. So your brain is, again, 11 million pieces. It's constantly evaluating, what do we need to do? Is this a real threat? Is this a perceived threat? Brain doesn't know the difference. It's always going to choose to protect you. And we need to sometimes interrupt that pattern.
And when we come back, I want to talk about how you help people interrupt that pattern, because that seems like that's like the golden grail of how to help people live their best life, is to break that pattern and to understand it and then to move past it. By the way, we're talking with Jen Upshold, and she is the painless coach. Go to her website, which is janeupshold.com, and I can spell that for you, which is USCHOLD, and that's .com, and she can help you. If you're in pain, if you know somebody in pain, if you know somebody who thinks they're in pain, you should give her a call. And I love this. I hope you're having a good time. I'm having a great time.
I'm having a fabulous time.
We'll be right back, and then she's gonna tell us how to help change our mind about the things that we feel and make a different choice than we have. And it may be something that you've never done in your life, but it may be life changing. We'll be right back.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. See, that wasn't very long. So see, in your mind's eye, you were saying, oh no, there's going to be a commercial. It's going to be a 5 minutes, and it's going to be terrible. And I'm not going to get the information that I want. See, you was wrong, because you didn't believe in what you was capable of. And so here we are. Jen, help us. How do we change our mindset? How do we make this all work?
It starts with a thorough evaluation. So we need to meet and figure out which is your dominant bucket. And from there, we talk about what the options are. And it's only going to work if you're curious and if you are making the choices. So it doesn't really matter how important sleep is. If somebody is like, you know what, I'm not ready to work on sleep, if I push that narrative, then I'm actually going to turn them away. Versus, you know what, I'm not ready to work on sleep, but I am ready to start working on my nutrition. Awesome, let's go there, because we want to be setting you up for success. Exercise and education happen to be the two gold standards. So we really want to help you understand how pain works, because if you don't understand how your phone works, you can't really use it. If you don't understand how to be an accountant, you're not going to be successful. And I would say to somebody, I could never trade places with you as an accountant, and you couldn't trade places with me because we don't have the knowledge. So it starts with knowledge and then understanding what are the strategies and tools and what are the ones you want to implement. And let's implement them on a consistent, regular basis. Because what we want to be doing is giving consistent, safe input into your nervous system, including your brain, so that the brain is perceiving less and less and less of a threat. Because as it perceives less of a threat, we are getting back down to a brick setting off the alarm rather than a leaf. And you mentioned electricity before. All of these, we have 400 nerves in our body, all connected like a crazy highway. They all have electricity in them. And when it crosses a particular threshold, too much science, that's when we have pain. So we want to lessen the sensitivity of that nerve so that we can respond to a brick appropriately instead of a leaf.
And is there and I know that there's a mental component that goes with that too, because if you see a brick coming through your window, you know that there's a problem. If you see a leaf hitting the window and then going away, and you don't perceive that there's a problem, or do you? Is that depending? If you think that if your neurons are, you got me so confused because you're so good at talking about this stuff. Because so how do you? If somebody is convinced that that leaf is going to break their window, how do you talk them off the ledge?
Stories. So we have taken very complex, sciencey things and brought them into stories. So one of our favorite, most well-known stories, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. Can I tell you a story?
Absolutely. That's how much time we got left.
All right. So very quickly, if you were to step on a rusty nail, would you want to know, Kevin?
Yeah, I've done that. I know it hurts.
Why do you want to know?
Well, because it's a rusty nail, number one, so I know I'm going to need to treat it, or I'm going to get, like gangrene, and then I'm going to have to amputate my leg and all that kind of stuff.
That's very catastrophic thinking, but okay.
Thank you. I'm good at catastrophic.
So yes, that pain that you felt is information and protective. So I mentioned 400 nerves, all connected like a highway. The rest of your nervous system in our tiny little session here is your brain and your spinal cord and those nerves. Those nerves are connected like a highway, 45 miles in length. So what's 45 miles from SeaTac Airport?
Linwood, no, even farther north than that, or south, like Olympia down south. It's an hour to get there from here.
That's how far we could stretch your nerves if we laid them end to end. So that's a lot of nerves, right? So now let's go back to the nail. When you step on that nail, it is not yet pain. We do not have pain sensors. We do not have pain nerves. We have danger sensors. And they send that information up to the brain. And if it crosses this threshold, that is when you'll experience the output of pain. So cool, isn't it?
Well, I just had an epiphany, and it didn't even hurt, so I had no pain. But is that why when you stub your toe, you hit on the bed frame, you hit your toe on the bed frame, and the thought process is, oh damn, I just stubbed my toe, but it doesn't hurt yet, and until you recognize that you've hurt your toe, and then that's when the pain comes. Is that?
That could be two different things. My brother actually stapled his gut and he didn't have any pain. He heard the staple gun go off, but he had no pain until he looked and realized the staple, his shirt was stapled to his stomach. And so that's that thing, right? The brain. I hope he's listening and watching you.
It's like, oh, I don't think I should have done that.
Right. but his brain didn't perceive the threat until it put it together, right? So it happened. The tissue damage was done, but it wasn't until he looked that he had the pain.
I was just picturing the conversation he was having with the doctor. Like,
oh, I'm sure it was good. He's an engineer, so he has cool conversations. So if we go back to our nail, your foot's going to be sore for a couple of days, right? It's going to come back to baseline. The problem we have, people with chronic pain, it doesn't come back to baseline. So instead of having that be here, and this is where the threshold is, these people are stuck up here. So there's so little room for them to do what they want and need to do before the alarm goes off. So what we're trying to do is to lessen this so they have all this room to do what it is that they want. And then people often ask, oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, why did my alarm stay elevated and not my cousin, my uncle, my sister, my friend? Well, we have research on this, and broadly it's called yellow flags. And things in our lives can keep the nervous system elevated. It can be fear of pain, it can be job situation, it can be family stress, it can be financial stress. So all of these things can creep this up where it's more likely for a leaf to trip the alarm rather than a brick.
And it's still, our brain is still involved with all of it. And
yes, it is our brain and our body. We cannot have pain without a brain.
Well, and I guess you could ask the scarecrow. He didn't have a brain and he didn't have any pain. So yeah, I'm just being silly. By the way, Jen, I want you to give everybody all your information so that they can reach out to you, because if you have chronic pain, in all seriousness, folks, if you have chronic pain and you have had trouble getting relief and you haven't found anybody to help you do that, Jen can do that for you, provided that you want to do it for yourself. And that's an important component to it. So Jen, give us all your information and how they can reach you, and hopefully whoever needs to hear this today or in the future will, and they'll reach out to you so that they can improve the quality of their lives, because the quality of your life will not only improve your life, but your family's life, your friends and family, your work, everything about you. So Jen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I would say the best place to find me is my brand new website that just launched last week, jenuschold.com. You can find information about the pain science. If you want to learn more about the mental fitness and go through that program. And if you really love this, I'm also trying to do more and more speaking to get the message out that pain is not a life sentence. And then I'm very active on LinkedIn as well. And thank you, Kevin, for this opportunity to hang out and have fun. And
by the way, you have, if you need anybody to tell somebody that they need to have you come speak, send them my way and I'll let them know, because you're dynamic, you're really good, and you make really complex issues a lot more simple so a layman like me can figure it out.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You know, I don't know why I use a Southern accent when I'm talking about lower intelligence, but maybe that's just me.
Culture influences pain too. Fun fact.
Oh no, that's another hour
Yeah,
that we need to talk about. So you have been delightful, and I want to thank you so much for being here. And again, go to our website, which again is
jenuschold.com, brand spanking new.
And it's beautiful, and it's a great place, and you can learn so much. There's so much that we don't know, and that's why I do this show, because I get to find out stuff from people like you that have spent your life working on it. And thank you for what you do. Being a physical therapist is hard work, and you are what we would call the utmost in people, because you have to be.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So have yourself a wonderful day, and thanks everybody for paying attention today, and we'll see you next time on Positive Talk. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin